Welcome back to Africa Event Connect, the podcast where we have real conversations with industry innovators shaping the future of events across the continent. Now, today we're diving into a topic that's on everyone's lips, and if it's not, it should be: artificial intelligence. AI is no longer just a buzzword or a future-facing concept. It's already transforming the way exhibitions and events are designed, organized, and experienced. From how we market and plan to how attendees interact, engage, and remember. To help us unpack the real potential of AI and how we can embrace it to boost creativity, productivity, and connection, today we're joined by none other than Nic Curle, the founder and managing director of Nucleus Vision, a cutting-edge digital agency, helping businesses unlock the power of next-gen tech. Nic is no stranger to the digital frontier. He's worked with brands across industries to bridge strategy, data, and innovation. And today, he'll help us cut through the hype and explore how African event organizers can use AI not to just do more, but to do better. So whether you're an organizer, marketer, exhibitor, or even tech enthusiast, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Let's jump in. So Nic, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. I'm so excited. I have so many questions.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a privilege to be here. So thank you very much. I'm excited to talk to the MICE team members and your audience. So thank you very much.
Yep. Well, I think there's a lot to be learned today. So everybody better listen up carefully, right? So we're talking AI. Now, yes. What does AI mean in the context of events and exhibition organizations? Let's look at that as a broader scope, because I know AI has so many applications across so many different industries. We're talking MICE specifically. So 100%. What would your interpretation of that be?
I think the big, I would kind of categorize it into large portions of, so that people can kind of understand where the potentials are. With a business, everybody's running their own businesses naturally inside the industry, and that is one of the first places you can start. So literally executives can start using ChatGPT. There's Claude, there's Grok, there's all these various platforms, and I think from the ability for people to start at least testing and playing with AI, I think is what I would suggest they do. So from a business perspective, that's the very, very basic. It's free account, you log on and you're good to go. You can actually start playing, and you can start seeing the power that it has. When it comes to the larger portion of the business, depending on what kind of business you run, obviously within those kind of spaces, you're looking at automation of processes. You're looking at scheduling of events. You're looking at, there's multiple things that you can do inside your business that will help. And the interesting thing, I think, to state at this point in time is that my suggestion to any business owner, and certainly people in the space that want to start using AI, is use it as a tool. There's a large concern about how dangerous AI is and the fact that it's new and it's going to take over everything. I think those things are largely fear-mongering. That being said, I don't deny the fact that guardrails need to be put up. So if you look at, Musk started AI, OpenAI, and since that kind of, I think there were some discrepancies with him shareholding there. He's now started Grok, and if you look at, that's Grok with a K, right?
Right.
There are two Groks, and I was playing on a different one as well. So there are multiple platforms that you can play on, but if you look at Grok versus AI, you can open AI or GPT, you can see that the GPT effectively is, and I say this with care, hiding all the thought processes behind it. So it's very conversational. It's about, give me the information, let's have a chat. And so that's really useful. When you look at Grok's very specific, and it actually shows you all its calculations. Like, I'm going to look here, I'm going to look here. This is what I'm doing.
So Grok.
Grok.
Yeah,
Grok.
Okay.
So I would suggest go and have a look. And for those who want to understand the differential, you can then see GPT is very much, let's have a chat. Like let's continue the conversation. So there's a lot more personal fact checking, where you need to make sure the fact that, hey, the feedback that I'm getting, is that feedback correct? And then with Grok, however, you've then got all the list of what it's been done, what it's doing, what its thought processes are, the references that it's pulling for the information, and those kind of things. The reason why I give those examples is those are the guardrails. So, and the reason why Grok is Musk has now started Grok under X. So it's those kind of guardrails where we are taking care of the fact that we are creating this tool, which in effect is learning in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've got that, you need to make sure the fact that there are guardrails, so it doesn't just run amok. And I recently spoke to someone. It's sort of the idea of a vehicle. Like, when vehicles were made, the brakes were really shocking, and there was power behind the engine, and it was a bit dodgy, but kind of it got you from A to B. But and there were multiple accidents, and they realized the fact they need to fix the brakes, and so the brakes were then made better, and now you get really cool vehicles which stop of their own accord.
That's true.
And mostly driven by mostly AI and automation. But you can see how they've learnt from the challenges. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. We're going to see the challenges, but those who have the knowledge need to, especially those who are developing it, have put some guardrails in place. And hopefully those are being listened to by all those who are developing platforms.
Now, I think if I look at our industry, there's always been this fear of automation taking over our jobs, and robots and artificial intelligence on a different level, in terms of chatbots and those kind of things, right? Yes. That's where we thought we were going, and trying to create experiences using automation and using chatbots. But I mean, when you talk about AI and events, it goes so much further than we ever thought, right?
100%, yeah.
Because you've got, within an organization. So if I'm talking to my organisers specifically, right, in our industry, and we're quite a big ecosystem, right? And it starts with the organizer, and in terms of organizing an event, and then we need to use the different service providers, and each of us are using the AI in different ways and different manners. So hopefully, it's nothing for us to be fearful of, and we don't need to just resort to chatbots and automation, right?
100%, yeah. I think just on the chatbot one is a really, really useful example, because chatbots previously we had 45 questions. We kind of used to have FAQs, right? Frequently asked questions. You kind of go to the website, you click on FAQ. Okay, there's my 12 questions, and that's kind of it.
Right.
We then took those and put those into a chatbot. So then you can ask and say, what is your pricing? What is and then it popped out and said, hey, it seemed a whole lot better.
I'm glad you're explaining that, because I think there are a lot of people that don't understand how chatbots work either. So that is a good point. I'm glad.
100%. And so then we got to what I would call automation. So you had sort of user driven, where it was just FAQ. You go into a website, you go to the FAQ, you kind of got to look for it. I suppose there was an interim where we then had search tools as well. So you can go and search on your website, and you could then pick up an FAQ. We then moved to chatbots, where we put FAQs into a chatbot, and you could bring up certain keywords, and it would go, well, if you're asking this kind of question, that's probably the question you're asking, so therefore here's the answer. Mm-hmm. So we kind of started moving more towards less engagement with the company, and one-to-one in terms of people, but then and the user journey was a lot more seamless and smooth. And then we moved to what we have today, where you could literally, and this is really useful for businesses, is you could literally take all your data and put it into PDF. You upload it to the server, GPT server, and now you can ask it any information from your system. So, and it'll then speak conversationally back to you. So it's not just a specific question. It's saying, listen, this is the question you're kind of asking. I'm going to pull these sets of data, and that's what I'd like you to respond. So, for example, it's like, what is your pricing, or what is the time that you close? And it goes, well, because today is a Sunday and you don't have times on a Sunday, and it's it's a public holiday, this is most likely the time that we are operating.
I see.
So it's technically pulling a whole lot more data sets together, and then presenting that in a conversational way. And I think the key function there is user journey.
Yes.
The user journey is being, and this is driven by us, right? So we all going, oh, AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's driven by us. We want a smoother journey. We want our Amazon delivered same day. We want our shopping delivered within 60 minutes. So
That's true.
we are driving the progression. And I think if we understand that, suddenly it becomes sort of light bulb moment going, oh, we designed this. Sure, there were developers behind it, but they only develop what we need, right? So they're developing for a need. And the need is user journey, make that user journey a whole lot easier and smoother. So in chatbot, you can kind of see the progression, and that's just happened with multiple sets of processes.
So what do you think of the current adoption levels in the event industry, specifically?
I think globally it's on everybody's lips, and it is definitely something which people are talking about. I think one of the things that we're certainly finding in our space is that there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And once the educations come in and there's the adoption at senior management level is kind of there, then suddenly there's a little bit more understanding of the fact that actually there's huge value here. And then it's how do you then implement that into businesses and look at where the potentials are to use it. Because I think the amount, the power that's there, albeit the channels do have, or the various platforms have challenges, don't get me wrong.
That's true.
You have to be a little bit careful. The amount of power that is there is quite, it's phenomenal, especially with applying your mind. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Okay. So how do we start using this? I mean, you talked about the user journey,
Yes.
right? And I remember having conversations with my web designer. I mean, from the time I started and changed websites and then looking at the feedback and the user journey on the website and then how we'd modify that. So it's the same kind of thing you're talking about.
So I think the big idea behind it's micro changes to help with that user journey. In your particular case, they do this in large games now. They and especially online things is that they large e-commerce websites is that they'll change a button by a couple of shades, so from A to B, and suddenly the uptick or the user response is hugely different. And it's interesting in both in Nucleus, the digital marketing agency, as well as my own Curle Consulting, the consulting business. There's a big drive, or the basis in which we work and how we from which we operate is all Jungian psychology based. So it's very much steeped in psychology, because at the end of the day, it's about how we speak to people. So symbology, processes, and what happens with our eyes. How do our eyes track when we're landing on a web page? How do our eyes track when we come to an app? And I think that's where you're talking about the user journey. With AI now, there are ways in which we can monitor the eyes. So you can actually have a camera watch the eyes. And I was talking to 5 or 6 people, because as agencies we would go to 5 or 6 people and say, or maybe 30, 40, and say, right, let's watch how your eye, you'll have someone watching you, or put a camera there and try and look. And you can start seeing what they're doing. Now what you can do is you can put a camera there, and the camera can then watch what the eyes do, but in far more detail or greater detail, and watch what those micro movements are, what the eyes are doing. And as you know, we're humans, we're all different. So, a neurodivergent brain would operate one way, and a more structured brain would operate in a different way. And then it's what to do with that when it comes to the user journey. So that's really coming back to your first question of how businesses, particularly in our space or industry, can implement it is in your operations. What can you do in operations? So in my business, as it were, what can I do in my business? And I think pull that even back to yourself. Like I said, as executives, what can you do with AI? So, what can you do? Is there scheduling tools that you can use? Is there or are there tools that you can use with your team to better manage the team or to help the team? And then how do you implement that in the business? So that's sort of bubble one. Bubble two then is where it comes down to the actual event itself.
Yes.
So when it comes to engaging with, and that's one of the reasons why I mentioned the putting your data on the website, is that event organizers could literally just upload the whole user manual, all the times, breakdown times, strike times, all those kind of things, setups, what the potential risks are on site, all that stuff can be put in, and you then allow the user to come onto the website and say, hey guys, go in here, there's a chatbot in there, and you can then go and say, I'm looking for the biggest risk on site. Do I need a forklift license when I come on site? What are the breakdown times? Am I allowed to come into the yard after hours? Those kind of things.
So have a special platform for the exhibitors and sponsors, etc.
Precisely. I'm a sponsor. I'd like to spend X amount of money. Can I be a sponsor? Or what bracket does that fit into? And the user doesn't now have to specifically go, I am an organizer. What are your various packages? Because the system can then go, okay, that's the question you're asking. I'm going to present that to you. The system will go, well, you're an organizer. As a keyword, it's got organizer, it's got sponsorship, and it's going to ask you, well, that's great, lovely to be here. So now it becomes conversational. Again, user journey. It's conversational. Thanks for coming. What would your typical budget be? And I can present the various options to you. Or would you like me just to present the options to you?
True, because you've got this contact page on a website that probably most often links to a CRM package that ends up in the inbox of your sales team. And there's somebody saying, I would like to exhibit, I would like to sponsor, I would like to attend or speak, whatever the case may be. How do I get involved?
Correct.
And it's quite a simple question.
Yeah.
And you're saying we don't need to waste time and energy having to reply, whereas it could be given to that person instantaneously.
100%. Yeah. And so it's fascinating. We, again, it's so beautiful to watch how it grows, because it's come out of, dare I say, our laziness. We develop websites, and it's fascinating how the number of people who go to the contact page and say, what are your operating hours? Or what is your pricing? And it's kind of like,
where do I get tickets?
Yeah.
Where do I register?
Exactly. It's kind of funny. You saw that on page 1 or you saw that on page 2.
Yes.
It's on the website. It's there.
It's there.
And
but we're lazy.
Exactly. So what happens is one of your sales team then has to stop their job or whatever they're doing and respond to say, hey, listen, it's 8 to 5, whatever the case might be. And so the AI then is now giving the opportunity to go, right, you're not going to read what's on my website, but I can give you the opportunity to speak to you. And so again, it's this user journey where you're just making that user so more comfortable and at ease. So I think from an organization's point of view, or an organizer's point of view, when it comes to the actual logistics of everything, I mean, there's multiple things you can do. That's just one element. You can then have a look at logistics planning. You can have a look at obviously the big thing is project management. What does it look like? People on site.
Yes. So could we use this information then when we are designing the event and strategizing the event? Because now you're talking about, so the user journey online is one thing,
100%.
But then as organizers, we track the user journey when they get to the show,
That's fascinating.
Right?
Yes,
because now very often you'll see in the retail space even, retailers know when people walk into a store, which direction they will go first.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
How they will find what they need around the store, where do they pause, and that's how they will position different activations within the store. So we're very much in a similar way, but on a business-to-business level or on a consumer show. So now, as organizers, we want to make sure we have our conference in the right place, our registration in the right place. So how and there's probably so many tools that can help us here, right?
Yes. Yeah, there are a number of tools which are already AI enabled for our particular space. I think it boils down to, particularly with organizers, obviously funding is you're always looking at every rand and cent, which is understandable. But by the same token, when that initial investment has been made and the understanding of what the power of the tool can be, then suddenly the cost of the tool becomes a whole lot more palatable. Yeah. And there are a number of tools that do that at the moment. That being said, we have, because of budgetary sort of constraints, we've started playing with things like basic camera systems where you can link a camera system to an AI backend, and you can now start tracking. Particularly, so we've tried this with clients. So on a stand, for example, on an exhibition stand, you put a couple of cameras up, and you can then watch what works on the stand. So what are clients attracted to? Where do they walk onto on the stand? What was their dwell time on the stand? You could even go to which salesperson was most engaging, which salesperson did the most work. So, those kind of things are really useful for senior management to have a look at. And it's useful to start understanding what works and doesn't work. So this particular graphic worked, that particular graphic didn't. This activation worked, that activation didn't. And taking that to the larger scale with regards to the whole event, should you have those kind of systems set up, you can definitely track the people inside. And there's various tools. Cameras obviously is one of them.
RFID used to be a big thing, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So RFID, and then also sort of there are a couple of different products that monitor cell phone usage. So where the cell phone, 100% where the cell phones are. It all boils down to it starts getting really interesting or sensitive, where people are going, I'm okay that you track me to a point. And it's really fun and cool for everybody to go, hey, this is great, this is cool, I can tell you where your people are, or where your engagement is. But when I start tracking my cell phone, going, well, welcome to the Wi-Fi, by the way, in the T's and C's, we're tracking your cell phone to monitor your usage and to monitor where you are. Suddenly I'm like, oh, actually, hang on, like my personal data, not my personal data, but it's kind of like where I am. So now there's this gap between understanding of knowing where I am at every point in time. Whereas the cameras and is a lot more sort of less invasive. However, the challenge there is sort of facial recognition and things like that. So again, we come back to guardrails. Like, what does that look like in terms of utilizing the data for what its intended purpose is, rather than utilizing the data for something of facial recognition or whatever the tracking might be. So, and that's where as industry and as those who are implementing AI need to be very sensitive to this, because at the end of the day, there are people on the other end, and there are people on both sides, and be sensitive to that and understand the fact that use it for what it's meant to, and take care.
Yeah. So let's take one step back, right? Now, before we even get onto site, we know already what our conference program is. We know what activation spaces we have. We know we want business matchmaking. We need to provide the information. We know what social events are happening. So we want our attendee to start interacting with us.
Yes.
So we start pushing registrations or sales. And now you can already start tracking this behavior for future.
100%.
And even before we get into site, to see when are people, what's pushing them to purchase or register, when they get on there, what are the patterns, right? The data patterns.
Correct,
I mean, and then you can communicate with them effectively, right? I mean, how do we bring AI into that? Because before, we'd watch it and our web manager would tell us, well, our site traffic has peaked on this day and this day, and then you go back and you think, okay, what was the campaign that you ran, and then did that campaign give you the output that you needed at that time? Did that call to action result in them landing on that page? So, and we use that information to measure the interest. I mean, constantly, and we did this all manually before.
Correct, yes.
So are we saying that AI can do this for us now, can help us do this better, faster?
I think the answer would be sort of a yes and no.
Yeah.
I think, again, it all comes down to training. What does it look like in terms of what that model needs to provide to you? And again, there are some really cool tools in our particular space in the industry. But it's all, I mean, we obviously, in Africa, we kind of need to be a little bit more sort of, not cowboyish, but we kind of, we tend to work on the fringes, particularly when it comes to costings. So there are what we call GPT servers that you can set up. If you can train it to do certain things, it can then bring that data back to you. And there are HubSpot and things like that.
So instead of using the general GPT
Well,
And
not
so-
even that, to actually a platform. So, for
Yes.
example, there are a couple of platforms out there that you can pay per seat or whatever the case might
Okay.
be, that actually pull all that data, most of that data together. So you could purchase that as a product, but I have, a lot of those, or not a lot, but the ones I've researched do have some gaps in it.
Mhm.
They are quite comprehensive, but they do have some gaps. What you could do is, in the example you gave now, of course, your marketing can be tracked. At the end of the day, you now have far better understanding of that particular campaign worked and that not. And there are a number of podcasts that do that, where they literally send out hundreds of different adverts and or sort of hooks that can get people onto the podcast. And so, that A/B testing is now done, could potentially be done within minutes, maybe hours, whereas previously you'd have to send it out and get back in sort of days. So to your question, yes, there are definitely ways that you can make that a whole lot easier and simpler. I think one of the things that I always chat to executives about is take a step back. And it's that whole thing of managers manage things, leaders lead people, and it's not about trying to manage the things that you know. And the continuation to that is managers ask and people ask, how do I follow the rules? Leaders need to ask, what are the rules that I need to put in place? And that same thing, taking one step back, is almost throw the rule book out of the window and say, for example, and the example you gave was a beautiful one, in that I don't need to track the data of what's happening. I don't need to track, does my call to action work or not? What I could potentially do is have ask my attendees or those who are interested to leave their LinkedIn link profile.
Okay.
Now what you've got is they've given you free access, as it were, to their LinkedIn profile. You can go and take that data and go, well, this person is in this particular space. This is the kind of stuff that they're potentially posting. And therefore, they would want to connect with these kind of exhibitors.
So you can do the matchmaking.
Correct. So now suddenly what's happening is you're now no longer trying to get them to give you the information. Again, user journey, you're allowing them to choose or at least give you access to their data, which then gives you the ability to matchmake. Sorry.
Go for it. That is very interesting. So, yes, and again, getting permission to get the data
Correct.
is obviously essential as
Yep.
well. So, I'm going to move on a little bit
Yes,
here.
100%. It's fascinating
I could
stuff.
needle
It gets
down.
so deep.
Yeah, go down a
100%.
tunnel.
Exactly.
So let's look at on the operations side,
Yes.
right? Streamlining the operation. So what are some of the lesser known ways that, we can make behind the scenes easier for event planners, in terms of the logistics and transcription tools or, lead retrieval or,
Yeah, I think that the example, I just go back to the example I just gave now, is that you could start, if you start unpacking what are some of the ideas or what are the bottlenecks that you're experiencing in your space, and really try not use the same hat that you've used up to now, and kind of go greenfields. What do we do? Like, what does this look like? Sorry. What is the bottleneck that we have? And ask AI. Say, listen, this is the challenge that I've got. What do you suggest? And my suggestion is to probe, because so most AI, or the basis of AI is they're based on LLMs, which is large language models. So the AIs mainly, or the engines behind it, are large language models, and effectively, very quickly, what it does is it allocates a number to a word. For example, so I am human. I is a 1, am is a 3, a human is a 5. What it then does is it then goes and takes those things. So you say, I am a human. What are my main features? And technically what it's doing is it's doing a math calculation and saying, you've asked this question turns that into numbers, takes those numbers and then goes into the pool of numbers and says, human has been said 4,000 times here, so I need to pull on that set of data. I is in that set of data, so I need to pull on that. And then it pulls all that together and then goes and says, obviously there's some coding as well, but it then says, okay, well, those are all the numbers that we are, the data sets that I need to pull on is X, Y, and Z, pull that together and then feed that as a response mechanism to say, well, you're asking this kind of question, that's kind of where you're going, pull that together and feed it back. And it's actually only feeding back arithmetic. It's giving you numbers back, but you hearing it in words. And so if one understands that, you can then start understanding the fact that firstly, your data set is critical. What does that look like in terms of, we were chatting a little bit earlier before we started about some of the challenges that these models have. When you're saying, I was playing around with an image the other day and had a gentleman or a figure sitting behind a table. And I asked the model to please remove the table. And it removed the table, put the figure straight on the table and made the table legs super short and put the table there. So chuckling to myself because so in that instruction, it's not, it obviously there's a bit of a challenge. Obviously these models are learning all the time, but you can see how there are some challenges there. And sometimes when we ask it certain things, it's not going to feed back, partly because of the guardrails. So there are some things which I've knocked up quite a number of times against guardrails.
Okay.
Say, for example, in if you look at astrology, you're looking at some of the, or the Greek mythology rather, there's some sort of half man, half horse centaurs, where you're looking at that and you're asking GPT to create a centaur for you or give you an image of a centaur, it refuses. And because one of the guardrails is it can't merge human and animal. Now, if you think about it, it's just an image. It's, why are we not allowing this to create me a centaur?
Yes.
But if you look at the extrapolation of that, is someone is sitting there going, what is the way that I can mix a man and a horse, DNA-wise?
Yes.
You and I are not wanting to mix DNA, but there might be a nefarious character out there who's thinking of how to do that. AI is then going, okay, well, this is what you would most likely do.
Oh,
So,
I see.
where those kind of guardrails are in place, which I know I've bumped up against a couple of times. And so it's part guardrail, but at the same time also the data upon which it's being pulled or upon which it's pulling. So, for example, if you've got a really detailed set of documentation when it comes to the operation manual of one of your particular products, that information is not freely available on the net because it's in one of your user manuals or something like that. You would want to put that online and then have a bot trained on that particular data, and suddenly you can have a conversation about that particular product or that particular user manual. So you can see how once you train it on the correct data, suddenly it becomes a whole lot more useful. And if you apply that to the challenge that you experience with generating imagery, our particular environment and our industry struggles a little bit with the amount of data that's out there because we're fairly small compared to the large population of the world. We're fairly small, and the amount of data that's out there is limited. So what happens is the AI models are currently challenged when it comes to pulling up data or pulling information together. So we would need to just make sure the fact that we train it on the correct data. And in that way, those little nuances that you asked about originally with a question is how can we use that? You could use that to upskill people in your business. So how do you upskill people coming onto site? You now don't have these 12 questions that says you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Yeah.
It's hey, this is what we suggest. Well, not suggest, this is what you need. You need a helmet, you need a vest, etc., etc. However, what other concerns do you have? Now the person can sit there and go, I'm really worried about working at heights, or I'm really concerned about what your take on ladders is. How do I go up ladder? Or, I'm coming into my site via gate 2. This is my stand. Where's the best place to park? And those little nuances now suddenly help from a flow point of view, help from a whole organization, easier and efficiency point of view. And I think that's really where AI's superpower is efficiency. And just almost like being that grease in the cogs of the gears.
Absolutely. I mean, we go into the marketing side of it, right?
Yes.
I know there are lots of people that are using it often, building marketing strategies, around it. But again, it's all about what you're putting into it.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
To get the right response. So it's not as simple as this is, a flawless strategy that's been given to you. So it's all about the information that you put in. And it's just like the people that we work with, right? It's how much we share with them.
Correct.
Right? To allow them to go away and do what they have to do. Right? So what advice do you have for us in terms of enhancing, from a marketing perspective, enhancing our content creation, how we target people, campaign optimization, etc.? Are there different clever ways of doing this?
I think leaning into people behind it for any executive or anybody in business is to enable the team that you have, because they are the experts in their particular space. You have them on the team for a reason.
Yep.
And so the thing I would suggest is get those or train those people on how to become better prompt engineers. So what happens is they then can use the products a whole lot better. So it was a beautiful example of strategy. If you go into any platform and ask it for a strategy in one particular area, it'd be really clever, because it'll ask you who your target audience is, what your outcome wants to be, and it can go and research quite quickly what competitors have been doing in the marketplace, and that's all great. And I think for those reasons, the AI is brilliant. Pull that information together and then give it to the expert, because the expert can then take this and go, right, so I've got quicker, faster access to the data.
Yes.
And
it's doing the research for me.
Correct. And I can acid test that and say, right, this is and you can ask it for a strategy, what that strategy would be. And that's definitely useful, but you can then start testing it and going, based on my experience, this is actually what we should most likely do. So again, it's about that efficiency. So it's getting you to 60-70% quicker than what you would have previously. So 7, 8, 9, 10 hours worth of work is now being done in 5 or 6 minutes for you, but you still have to do that last mile. I call it like the last mile. Is what does that last mile look like? That's where the value is being added. And I can come back to one of our first conversation, or part of the conversation we had, is that as human beings, the beauty that makes us who we are, and the emotional side of us is what's going to differentiate us from these tools. Because at the end of the day, we, as much as what I think a lot of us sort of shy away from our emotions, particularly males, they have a good way of practicing that, and I generalize. But I think we're going to need to start practicing those emotional skills, because the standard operation and procedural stuff is largely going to be taken care of by AI models, certainly in the not too distant future, actually. And so where we differentiate ourselves is we're going to differentiate with personal knowledge, personal experience.
That's true.
And our emotional quotient, or our EQ, as it were. And I think that's really where we need to lean into it.
That's true.
And that's where we're going to have the value.
Don't you find as well, I mean, I learned a little trick recently, and I thought, I never thought about doing this before. But very often we put prompts into the AI, right?
Yes.
Can you do this? Or where do I find this? What, where, why, how? We constantly, bombarding it. But very often we think we want this, and this is the information that I have. But we don't stop and ask it if it needs information from us.
Correct.
Because you think, I've given him everything. I've given the AI everything that I know. But once I started putting prompts and say, let me know if there's any other information that you need regarding this or this, or would you need that? It was interesting. There were very often times where I had missed gaps, and I'd left out critical information to help it give me a better response.
Yes.
So that was quite an aha moment for me, I must admit.
Yes,
right?
Yes, yeah.
So, so it's, again, like I said, all about putting whatever you're putting in. Now, from even an exhibitor perspective, Okay. I mean, we have marketing people on the teams, but again, are there smarter ways for them to use AI, whether it was to boost their visibility or engagement or build stands or what kind of activations?
Yes. Sorry. It's really fascinating. That question's really good, and I think everybody in their particular space, when they start asking these questions, will come up with things that are aligned with them. But there are a number of products out there, platforms out there, and certain ways that you can start tweaking what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in the marketing space, A/B testing is big.
Mm-hmm.
You put out a certain set of content. Is it working? Is it not working? Is it resonating with your audience? Is it not resonating? And again, that testing will be far quicker in terms of using certain platforms, using certain things, and you could writing your own GPT server to do the testing. So certainly in A/B testing, there's no question that works really, really well. Can
I stop you there? When you talk about using your own GPT server, right? Now, can anybody just do that? Do you get onto GPT and pop in the information, or do I need to use an AI agency like yours, for example? What is the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, look, we'd love to help anybody, of course. But it is actually quite simple. Is that you'd need, particularly in the OpenAI space, you'd need a paid membership, and there's a little server on sort of on your drop down on the left. There's a little thing where you can go into your personalized servers, and you can create your own server.
And who has access to that information, though? How? I mean, is it open to anybody in the public?
Technically. So there's two answers to your question. These models, because of the way the models are operating, any data that you put into it, you need to be very careful in the fact that is data that's going to be accessed by the general, not the general public, but it's going to be it's forming part of that data house or that data hub that the LLM is leaning on.
Okay.
So when AI models first came out, they were like X number of petabytes that are available in the internet. Here we go. We put some guardrails in place, and that's the data that it had. And at one point in time, those will remember, GPT only had access to data up to a certain point. Anything after that, it didn't have access to.
That's true.
100%. So now we've got to the point where it has access to the internet directly. And there were a couple of guardrails that were bumped up again, certainly at that point in time, and things where they realized they needed to put more in place. So now it's got access to the net. You can write your own, and you can ask it to help you. So basically, I'd like to write a server. This is what I want to do. Can you please help me? And it'll help you do that. To answer your question, you can then, and this is what people are doing at the moment, is technically selling their IP. So their IP is saying, I'm looking for this kind of client. That's how I researched them, and this is the information that I brought in. If you would like to copy or use that process, you can now use my server at R5 a month, R10 a month, whatever it might be. So it's really, really cool, actually, because now what's happening is you're giving the small business person access to being able to create something that they have a really cool idea about and actually take it to market almost at zero cost. Obviously, you're paying for the platform, but website, set something up, set a couple of adverts in place, and you can then you've created your own server. You can then start generating some money. So I think from that perspective, it's really, really cool, because now the barrier to revenue or the barrier to starting a business in this particular space is very, very low. So that GPT, you can use it on your own. You can set it up for yourself. You could sell it and give access to other people to do. But at the end of the day, it's and then, like I said, Samsung, unfortunately, is one of the big stories where they were using it for training, code writing. And what happened was their code was then accessible by others.
Oh, I see.
So with a specific, and we've tried this. I've had a couple of team members and some cool industry partners where we actually tested it. We created a certain document with certain words which were only used in that particular document. They didn't exist anywhere else because that particular team had certain buzzwords for their particular thing. And we tested it. We then went on to, a couple of days later, we went onto the system and we had to ask specific questions. But once you asked the specific questions, we then got access to the concepts and some of the information that was shared by the other team. So that is just something to bear in mind, is that the information is there for all. That being said, there is a famous quote out there, is that there's no such thing as a new idea. So it's about, again, I'm very conscious of the fact that, again, where we are as human beings, the value we bring to the world is the energy we are given by whatever higher power you believe in or not. The value we give is that energy that we give to things. So when we create exhibition stands, when we design exhibitions, when we organize things, the beauty is the energy that we give it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you and I can have the exact same idea, but we present it in completely different ways. We'll activate it in different ways. And like you're saying, we have different people, and those are our human powers that we have, that you cannot copy from me no matter what, because our service delivery, our, expectations on, delivering on client expectations, etc., they value differently in different organizations, right?
Correct, exactly.
So I get it. Yeah, that 100%. Makes complete sense. Yeah. That makes complete sense. Now, when we talk about using it, on site, there's, previously gamification and just to make things more exciting was starting to play a bigger role. But do you think there are other plugins to the AI that could help us do these things better?
I think from an idea generation perspective, we were talking about ideas now. I think the having access to a platform which will give you really cool ideas, and my suggestion there is just keep prompting. So your first 10 ideas are going to be great, like us as humans. Your first 10 ideas are going to be great, but your next 10 are going to be better, and the third 10. The next 10 are going to be even better. And so you hone in on what's really useful and what's really good. And I think with AI, it's very similar. And once you start guiding it in a lot more specificity, or you're specifying where you're going, it's going to be, the information you're going to get is better. So when it comes to activations, when it comes to things like that, we've experienced it ourselves, is the fact that it's really useful. And
it's a good starting point.
Correct.
Right?
And it engages the audience as well. And I think then what you can do is you can then put that into play. So, for example, you can create, again, you go to a GPT, or you can create a matrix of information where, if I come onto a stand and I engage in a particular activity, spin the wheel, whatever you'd like, using really, really basic things. But, you could then have it specifically based on that particular person. So that person comes in and says, hey, listen, this is who I am. And again, the easy thing is, and I use it, which I think scares people a little bit, but if they're open to giving their data in terms of their LinkedIn profile or their social media profiles, you can learn so much about a person. People do post on social media, people don't post on social media. And it seems dangerous, but in that space, you can now start having access to some of that data. So, to be fair, a lot of the personal data sets are blocked, which is great, because that's one of the guardrails. Because now getting that kind of data is really dangerous for nefarious players. But when I start understanding who my client is, so you can go down the road of asking some questions. What do you like? Do you like quad biking versus canoeing? What, that kind of thing. And suddenly, starting to build this profile for that particular person, and the responses in the game, or the responses to the questions that they get asked, are now tailored to that particular person. And in the retail space, it's really fascinating, where you could have someone come in to a retail space and go, hey, Progeny, welcome back. How did you like that fleece jacket you bought last month? We've currently got these pants, which we think will really go well with that. They're in aisle 45, and they're on special at the moment.
Wow.
Freaky, but at the same time, you're kind of like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Because I walk in, no thinking, and this is really interesting, because as humans, I think we err on the point of not laziness. I think we err on the point of having things done for us as much as possible.
Yep.
So, we used to ride horses. I'm pretty sure it was quite stressful and strenuous riding horses. I sit in a car, it's a whole lot less strenuous.
That's true.
And so we are aiming for this point of, depending on what you believe, I kind of have this idea of aiming for the point of stillness. And so it plays out in the fact that we want to do less of these really strenuous things, that we'd like to find automation. AI is another one in that. And so in these processes, you can now start really playing with that person's identity in terms of what you feed back to them. So you're giving them what they want, which is what we all want, right? As human beings, that's what we want. So you come up there, ask them a question, ask them 5 questions, which is really beautiful. You said it a couple of minutes ago, is ask the AI, what would you like to know about me that'll help you respond to me better? And that's effectively all we're doing on activations. When you come to a site, what does that look like?
Yep.
Would you like to throw a ball? Would you like to throw a set of darts? Would you like to, hit a ball? Like, would you like to not do any of those? Because actually I'm super chilled and I'd like to, do something totally different. So all those things can make activations a whole lot more interesting and really tailored to the person that comes onto the site.
Now, I played with a couple of, like I said, plugins like
Yes,
DALL-E, right?
Yes.
I tried the logos.
Yep.
That wasn't fun.
Yeah.
I prefer my designer.
Yes, 100%, of course, yeah.
But so I mean, what are there any other plugins that people could play with besides the GPT, where we can put our prompts in and stuff like that? But is there a way that that could help you design schedules, project plan timelines, operational plans, designs? I'm just trying to think of things that we need, physical things that sometimes are very time consuming to draft. I see on, I love the feature on Adobe where it's able to analyze the data for you in the document, right? Yes. That's also so interesting. So any that you would recommend? Yeah,
it's really interesting. So on our website, nucleusvision.digital, we actually, under the AI tab, we've particularly tailored a page where links for the exhibition industry and in the particular the MICE industry. So exhibition, things that are based in the large language models that are sort of more general,
right?
The GPTs, the Claudes, the Groks of this world. That's sort of one area that people can go and have a look at. And there's multiple. You can go and play and see which one works for you.
Okay.
We then have more project and operational tools as well, so you can go play with those.
Oh, wonderful.
Things like Notion, Trello is bringing some really cool AI stuff in, so you can go and play with some of those. And then we've got some marketing tools as well, so you can go and have a look. And we've really tried to, we're constantly testing this. So our team is constantly testing these, what works, what doesn't work, what are the positives and the benefits, the pros and cons to these platforms. And so we're putting those up on that particular page that people can go and have a look at, and especially our industry. Because our industry it's an interesting one to start playing in, because we are huge when it comes to looking at ourselves. In the bigger scheme of things, it is sometimes a little bit smaller, and the amount of funding that comes into this is sometimes challenging. So what we have tried to do is give the exhibition or the industry as a whole the tools that they can start playing with. Obviously, if you want to start integrating those tools and things like that, it might be better to bring on someone who can start helping you. And we're
don't try and sew it up yourself.
100%.
Go to the doctor.
100%. You're always happy to help. But when it starts coming to playing with those things, you can then start unpacking them for yourself. So we're all about enabling. How can we help people start that journey on their own? So
wonderful.
Okay,
so where do we go? That page?
Yes, nucleusvision.digital.
Nucleusvision.digital, right?
There's an AI tab on the website where people can go and have a look, and all those tools are laid out there. And you literally click on the logo, and it'll take you directly to the platform. And just to be blunt, we don't make any money out of it. So it's
but we are so appreciative that you're doing all the testing.
No, it's a pleasure. No, 100%. No, it's a pleasure. Yeah.
But Nic, so together with all of this, as exciting as it all is, right? I mean, there's just, I think for me, it's from a time-saving perspective, from working with smaller teams where sometimes you need people to brainstorm with. And having and everybody, I mean, we're all juggling. It's an industry where we juggle all the time, and we work under great pressure, under great deadlines, and can be quite stressful. So having something like this that you don't have anybody else to talk to at 2:00 in the morning, but this is bugging you, and you need to come up with some ideas. I know that somebody is awake, but with all of that comes, there's challenges, and it's a mindset shift for a lot of people. So what would you say to organizers who feel intimidated by AI?
I think the big thing is that AI is not going away. I think it's probably the first thing that people just need to, or anybody in business has to kind of settle on now, is number one. The second thing is we've been using AI for years. When your favorite texting app, whether it be WhatsApp or text messages or whatever, started predicting the words that you were going to say next, that's a very basic AI model. It's going, these are the kind of words that you would have used in the past, and I'm going to predict the words that you're going to use going forward. That's right. So people are sitting there going, AI is so scary. It's like, well, you're kind of using it already. And balancing those two concepts is really beautiful, because you start understanding the fact that it's the natural progression of what's happening. And once that's settled in the mind, just start, I think is probably the suggestion I've got, is go on to, start playing with these things. You will start understanding the value that it brings to the life, because it is a tool which, as a species, we have designed. And it's a natural progression. It came from the transistors that Google was using. To be fair, we have created it ourselves. So, Google with Google searches and things like that, when you start typing, how do I make, it's going to say banana bread, muffins or whatever, and because if you're a bit of a petrol head, how do I make a better fuel mixture or whatever, that's what it's going to predict, because you have taught it what it wants. So, we've been using these AI models for quite a while now. And so, where you can find efficiency, and we loved it, right? We didn't have to go to encyclopedia to go and page through it to try and find the information. We now just go onto Google, and those who remember sort of Yahoo before that. And so it's really leaning into that and figuring out what can work for you. And what I find personally is that start playing. It's really beautiful, the paid version of GPT at the moment, and I only push GPT because it is the most conversational one that there is. It is. Grok, to be fair, is very you can actually see the guardrails in place as you start asking the questions. It tells you where it's getting its information from. It sends the links, but it's far less conversational, and it's a lot more sort of text heavy. So if you play with AI and you've got a paid version, you can start having a chat. So literally just have a chat and go, hey, I'm new to this, talk to me. Let's have a conversation.
As simple as that.
As simple as that. And then start saying, and it'll start learning who you are. This is the industry that I'm in. This is the agency that I run. This is the business that I run. These are the type of clients that I speak to. And it's quite fascinating how that starts sort of triggering things in you and starts bringing things up. And I'll tell you now, you're going to bump up against things. Enjoy it. Just understand the tool and start playing with the tool, and then it will start being able to give you tools that it can use. Okay. So say, this is the space I'm playing in. What kind of tool do I need? Or what can I use to make my business more efficient? I'm struggling with hiring team members. What do I do? Where do I go? What's the best platform? Well, you should go into this platform because it has a 5-star rating. This platform is a 4-star rating. Yeah. So those kind of, it doesn't matter what challenge you have, it's Google on a different level. And I think that's what people need to start understanding, because these same mechanisms behind it are technically the transistors and the large language model that are behind it were the same things that have now come out with
so
AI.
We've been using it all the time. Yep. It's just taking us one step further.
Correct.
I mean, to be honest, I have to tell you, I've even stopped using Google.
Precisely.
I use my Meta AI now on my WhatsApp.
Yes.
And, want a banana bread recipes. I don't want to figure out which of the 5 is the best. Just give me the best one. And there are a few other links if you need,
Exactly.
what is in this medication or what is the best way of doing it. So it's a very quick, somebody WhatsApping me quietly, quickly. And if I really need to go on, then I can look at all the links.
Exactly.
But again, like you're saying, it's all about experimenting, right?
Correct. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, as business owners, I think any of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, there's no cookie cutter for business.
No.
There are people who have ideas and who have done it in their way with their particular recipe. And we love trying to figure out what that recipe is because we perceive success and we try and copy success. It's just how we're born, right? It's how we learn. But there is no cookie cutter that's going to be perfect for everyone. And what is so beautiful in the space is the fact that it can be tailored to you because it's a conversation. It's a conversation that you're having with a platform that is now the information is far more accessible. The sort of guardrail that I would suggest for people who use this kind of thing, and I'm very, very clear on this, always to state this, is your personal experience is always, in my opinion, more important than the information that the world is giving you.
Right.
So, and in this particular case, AI is going to pump you with information, which is really beautiful because now you don't have to go to the bookshelf and pull out the Britannica. You don't have to go to Yahoo, Google, which is great. But acid test that, fact check it. If it's not the experience that you've had, then probe more. And the positive of these tools are that you have access to this data far more efficiently and easier. The thing that I always ask people to do is test. Make sure that which you're getting and use it for the certain purpose that it's there. Use it to get to you to the 70, 80, sometimes 90%. If you train it really, really well, you get it to the 90%. But fact check it. We don't want to, and the head of Google AI at one point said that we don't want to be led by the Californian developers. So ask the questions, make sure the fact that you probe what's happening, and again, this is my opinion, always vet it against personal experience. If you know that and that, and we're coming back to emotion. Yeah. If it doesn't sit right here, question, because it's going to take you to the next level. It's an amazing tool, but just keep practicing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nic. That was really insightful. It is, I think, it's so exciting. It's such an exciting space.
Definitely.
But like you say, don't take it for granted. Fact check, delve deeper, always. I mean, that's what we do as human beings. We constantly want to go deeper and find out more. And we can't accept everything at the surface level, right?
100%, yeah. 100%, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for the honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
A huge thank you to Nic Curle for such an enlightening conversation. Nic has shown us that AI isn't here to replace event organizers. It's here to amplify our ability to connect and help us create smarter, more memorable, more human experiences. Now, there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode. It's that embracing AI isn't about being tech savvy. It's about being people savvy. It's about understanding your audience on a deeper level and using the right tools to deliver what truly matters with precision, creativity, and care. So to everyone tuning in, don't wait for AI to become the norm. Start small, stay curious, and be bold in your experimentation. The future of events is already here, and it's intelligent. So if you found value in this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to Africa Event Connect. We appreciate your support, and your support helps us to bring you actionable insights and inspiring conversations that move this industry forward. Until next time, from me, Prajani Patha, keep creating, keep connecting, and as always, keep leading the way in Africa's event evolution.